Moving on, our next keynote is a humanitarian and activist who has dedicated her life educating children and empowering women in Nepal. She has been honored as Forbes Top 30 Under 30 a social entrepreneur and by the Dalai Lama as an unsung hero of compassion. So let's welcome Miss Maggie Doyne on this stage.
Hi, everybody. Namaste. Thank you to the British College for having me. When I saw the title, Women in Business, I was really honored. I was like, oh, do I have a business? I don't know. It's a nonprofit. It's a social entrepreneurship venture. It's a dream, and it's at my heart center of what I do. So I'm honored to be here. And I was thinking about it as everyone was talking, all the amazing ladies up here, and I was like, it is something. And yeah, so honored to be amongst you all. There's like a million things that I could talk about, and as the other ladies were speaking, I was like, oh, we could talk about venture capital, and we could talk about nonprofits, and we could talk about, business plans, but I think I want to, as I'm closing out the day, I think I want to focus on heart. I think that's what makes women really special. I find that we're very, very attached to our hearts, and we're good at leading with love. And so I want to talk about that. My own journey started when I was just 18 years old, so I was a very young person to start. I grew up in suburban New Jersey in the US, very, very different than Nepal. I went to the government school around the corner. I had two sisters. I'm the Maili Chori. So I'm one of three girls. I had a dog. I had a mom. I had a dad. I went to school. I played soccer. And that was me. I ran around in my ponytail. And I never really thought about the world outside of the US and this small little corner of New Jersey where I'm from. So when you grow up in the US, especially in this area that I came from, you turn 18 and everyone's like, where are you going to college? Where are you going to go? What's the name of the school you're going to? Where are you going to get in? And it's a huge, huge major investment of, I'm sure this relates, like your parents' money. And at the very last minute, I had all the grades and I had all my exams done and I had, I was an athlete. Everything was headed to the path of college, university. I got into these great colleges, and at the last minute, I went back to my heart, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know what I want to be. I don't really know who I am. So how am I supposed to go to college, spend all this money that's not even mine when I have no idea what I want to do with that? So threw everything out the window, and I was like, I'm going to go travel. Now, I just went to travel to have fun. I wanted to go adventure. I had never left this little state of New Jersey, so I was like, I'll go see the world. So I packed up a backpack. I had every intention of just having fun, learning about myself. I went to Fiji, I went to Australia, I went to New Zealand. Just talk about privilege and luck. It was the best semester of my whole life. And then for the second semester, I knew that I really loved kids. And my best friend Hannah and I were like, let's just go somewhere we can be helpful and work with kids. And I ended up in northeastern India. And this is where my introduction to Nepal came. I could not have placed Nepal on a map. I knew vaguely about Mount Everest, maybe the tallest mountain in the world. No idea culturally what was happening or where it was or anything. It was just so off my radar. And I plopped down in northeastern India, and it's the year 2005. And you can imagine geopolitically what's happening. There had been a civil war, and it had really affected most of the far west and Karnali regions. And I started to meet Nepali families and Nepali children. And we were serving a population of Nepali refugees living in India. It made me ask all kinds of questions. First of all, I noticed a love of country. I noticed the way that people spoke about Nepal, how badly they burned to return home. But I also noticed really hard things. Once a child gets across the Indian border, they're working as child laborers. They're often sold into trafficking. Families are sleeping under pieces of plastic, breaking rocks, working menial jobs that Indian people don't want to do. And I just started to be like, well, why aren't they back in Nepal? Why is everyone here? I just met a really good friend. Her name was, ironically, Sunita. And unlike me, not this Sunita, a different Sunita, unlike me, Sunita knew exactly where she wanted to go in life. She was like, I'm going to go get my PhD, I'm going to become a doctor, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I admired her so much. But she was like, I don't know where I came from. I left my village when I was 8 years old. It's in Kalikot, and I'm missing this huge piece of my identity because I left as a refugee, and I haven't been back to my village. So Sunita and I are like, let's go find your village. It's in Nepal. We pack up our backpacks. We take a bus. I did not tell my parents where I was going. I was like, I'm going to go renew my visa. We pack up our backpacks. We get on a bus that takes us across the Nepal-Ganj border on a pony cart. We get on another bus that takes us up into Karnali, into the mountains. And at some point, the bus driver looks back at us and is like, you have to get off now. This is the end of the road. And we were like, okay. So we get off, and we see a footpath and a foot trail, and that was leading to Sunita's village, which was called Odanoku, and it's in rural Kalikot. It was the hardest trek and walk of my entire life. It was 3 days scaling through the mountains. And after 3 days, like sleeping on a tarp and, going to the bathroom behind a rock and just having my mind blown, I just started to take in the imagery of Nepal, the imagery of Karnali, the most beautiful mountains that you've ever seen, the strongest, most resilient people passing by with beautiful baskets on their head, the goats, the animals, the strength. And I remember just getting to this peak and looking out with Sunita over it, and she said, there it is, that's my village, and that's my home. And it was just this amazingly powerful moment of watching my friend find home and what that meant. And I found home too. I was taking it all in and just this is the most beautiful place. It was also at the height of conflict. Temples had been burned, schools had been shut down, kids were writing. If they were going to school, they were writing with sticks in the mud. I'm an American teenager. I couldn't, it was the time before YouTube. You didn't see these things. They were this far distant, thing that maybe you heard of when your parents were like, finish the food on your plate because there's hungry people in the world. But I had never seen it or experienced it. And so there was something about that trip that just shook me and transformed me, and seeing the way that Nepalis were treated in India as migrants, and how hard they worked and how much they loved their country, and then seeing the Nepal side of what it meant to be a family, a child, a girl in rural Karnali, and the odds that they were up against. So on this trip, we come back down to this place called Surkhet, where now I live. But there was this dry riverbed, and on the dry riverbed, Sunita and I were walking across, and all of a sudden we heard this clanking sound of rocks. And as we looked up at the riverside, there were children who were 3 and 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 years old, and they were breaking rocks. And everybody often asks me, well, what was the moment that you decided to stay in Nepal? And that was the moment. I just looked up at these kids, and they were breaking rocks, and I was so confused. And as I started to cross the riverbed day after day, I realized that the children were there breaking rocks all the time. And at the end of the day, they would sell the rocks for about 100 rupees. And that was the way that children in this particular place were surviving. So that really shocked me. It totally broke my heart. It made me question the world, our human family, and just what is my place in all of this now? Now that I've seen this thing, what is it? How do I change it? And at that moment, this little girl, her name was Hema, and she was in an orange dress, and she looked up at me and she said, "Namaste, Didi." And I knew only those two words in Nepali, Namaste and Didi. And I was like, oh, like she thinks I'm her sister. Now I know that everybody's Didi, but at the time, at the time I thought, oh, I'm like special. She thinks I'm her Didi. And she says, she's breaking her rocks, and she says, "Namaste." And then I was like, okay, I can't do anything about 1 million orphan children. I can't do anything about a civil war. I can't do anything about 5 million migrants working and struggling across the Indian border, but maybe I can do something for Hema. And maybe one day I can walk across this dry riverbed and not see a single child breaking rocks. So I moved there. I stayed there. I met my co-founder, Tope, who was ironically Sunita's uncle, who became my mentor and older brother. Thank goodness for mentors who humbled me and just taught me so many things. I was really fiery and really passionate, and that was kind of where the learning began. To be a girl in Karnali, I'll just tell you some stories. I met a young 11-year-old, and she told me once, "I need 20,000 rupees." And I was like, what? Why do you need 20,000 rupees? I'm not like an ATM machine. And she said, "That's how much I cost." She'd been sold for 20,000 rupees to work as a domestic in a local leader's home. When I was 19 years old, again, a teenager, just a kid playing soccer from New Jersey, when I got my first period in Nepal, I slept in a cowshed because I thought that that's what I had to do. So I slept in the cowshed on a pile of hay, and the locals convinced me that if I didn't sleep in the cowshed, that snakes would come and all of these bad things would happen, that the harvest would be really bad. When I was 22, I saw a drunk uncle light his niece's backpack on fire because she was going to school. When I met one of the students in our program, I asked her what she wanted to be, and she said, "I want to be a banker." And I was like, "What? Why do you want to be a banker?" And she said, "This one time I saw a woman wearing pants, and she was driving a scooter and wearing red lipstick and carrying a briefcase, and I had never seen that before, and I thought, I want to be her." So imagine a girl seeing a woman wearing pants for the first time, or wearing red lipstick, or driving a scooter, that powerful imagery. That's what we need more of in this country. Girls seeing that model and that example, and them being able to plant a seed for that wish of what they can be. So we started with just a really small local team. We wanted to change what we were seeing at the very grassroots level. And within 5 years, we walked across the riverbed one day, and there wasn't a single child breaking rocks anymore. We started a sustainability program supporting local farmers. We started a women's empowerment center, realizing that women are really the heartbeat of communities and the need to create jobs and industries and have women have financial power despite the fact that they maybe didn't go to school. We started a health and wellness nutritional clinic. We started a Big Sisters home for at-risk girls who'd been victims of domestic violence or young labor or sexual assault. We started a home for kids who'd lost everything, orphan-based care, but really looked to change the model of what home means. And 15 years later, I'm now 35 years old, I've learned so much. And I think what I want to share with you as the takeaway, because all of the other women said so many things already, but the education system in Nepal is only 50 to 70 years old. This is such a young place, And for you to be here, sitting in this room and attending a college like the British College, you are the top 1%. You are sitting in the positions of power and privilege in this country to be sitting on the stage or standing where I am. So just remember the weight that carries, not to weigh down on you like a burden, but when you're given to that which great things are given, so much is expected. And there are still so many girls like Hema waiting for us to pick up the baton and carry it forward. You are your grandparents' and your parents' greatest dreams and wishes. You're things that they couldn't have ever imagined. So as a mother, I just want to say, don't ever forget that. I'm sure many of your moms and grandmothers didn't go to school, didn't sit in a classroom, so we're the first. You're the first. And just take your dreams so seriously. Believe in yourself. Invest in yourself. Never doubt yourself. Ask yourself what breaks your heart. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. If you don't know where to start, what makes you come alive? What inspires you? Where do you see a gap? And then go for that thing that you want to change. And then, we're at a place in Nepal right now where young people, every single day, millions and millions of young people are leaving this country. They're going to India, and they're going to the Middle East to work back-breaking labor, get treated like crap, and build up another country's economy. So we need to ask ourselves at this critical moment in time, who do we want to be? What do we want to do? And what will be the future? And I just think it's such an act, no matter what business you start, no matter what initiative you begin, it is a major act of bravery to stay here, to do what these women did when they could have been anywhere. They could have stayed in Canada. They could have gone wherever they wanted. It is such an act of bravery to stay in here and believe in this place and invest in this place. Or go and come back. Just think, remember where you come from, remember the challenges that we're up against. Always have faith and have hope in this country, because there is so much opportunity. There are so many gaps. Look at how each of them stepped up and filled a gap that was there. They saw the future. They saw something that wasn't there. There are a million of those gaps across the country. So find that niche for yourself. And here, you're going to be a big, big, huge fish. That's the great thing. You can go abroad and you'll be a small fish. And maybe. But the chances are that if you do stay here, you do start something, you employ 500 people. This woman's employing 500 people. That's 500 families that are not abroad in Dubai, in the back of a factory, sleeping with 6 people in a room. That's 500 families that get to put their kids into school. They get to have food on the table. If we counted up all of the folks that these people employ, it is a huge initiative. If you look at all of the people that the British College employs. So there are these opportunities, and the only way to raise this country is to stop complaining about it and be a part of the change and believe in the hope and believe in the opportunity that's here. Where do we start? We start right here with what's around us. Are we supporting women-led businesses? What are you wearing? Where was it made? Where are you buying your snack? Where are you sourcing your goods from? I like a good deal too. I want to buy cheap, 100 rupee this, 200 rupee that. But are we believing and investing in what we have right here in this country? That's a really great place to start. Number 2, look to the rest of our brothers and sisters who are sitting in Mugu and Sindhupalchok and God knows where else, far western Nepal, Mahendranagar. There are so many people who will never get to sit in this room. So let's look to them. Let's put a hand out, and let's pull them up right here where we are with us. Let's do that. Thank you so much.